did last time we were together had the psychedelic R1S surfaced?
No.
Or it hasn't?
No.
Oh man, well we got to get excited about this then, because we've seen
That's
so much of the R1T in wraps.
wild.
And then we saw our first R1S like out in the wild in normal. And then I think that night you guys both texted me and said, get your beard up to normal and start taking pictures.
Seriously.
Which I just need to sometime. I got this like thing called work that I always just choose to do during the day. But this wrap, we definitely think it was the blue that came off the line a couple weeks ago that RJ of all people posted, which was awesome, because when you see this wrap, and we call it this psychedelic wrap because it's just kind of like this mix of lines that's almost holographic, like trippy, which is awesome. But the little side view mirror cap definitely has that Rivian blue.
Yeah.
And, kind of put two and two together, you would think that we've got a match here. So it was awesome. The eagle eyes of Skylar and Jimmy and who else have noticed a few new things. We've got a back hinge that's different design on the back gate, and then some blinker stuff. You guys take it away. Tell the audience about it.
Oh, you're the sleuth. Do it.
All right.
This
So
guy's ridiculous.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like, that's a substantially different design. And I'm like looking at it. Oh, there it is.
yeah, so I'm not the one that noticed the rear lift gate, but it was on one of the forums, and yeah, the design of the upper part of the rear lift gate has changed to where it's hard to describe. Hopefully you can put a picture up. But
Well, I will for the YouTube portion, yeah. But for the podcast listeners, do your best.
all right, so
I mean, and you don't have to. We can just tell the podcast people to quit being lazy and go watch YouTube.
I like that better, Kyle.
Yeah,
and matter of fact, they need to see the wrap anyway, if they haven't. And my affectionate term for it is optical assault. Because, yeah, it almost hurts your eyes a little bit. So to me, it's the optical assault wrap. But so the rear liftgate was one thing. The other thing that one of the guys on the forums noticed is that it looked like I'll call it the third row window on the side, the furthest back window of the R1S looked both longer and shorter than the prototypes. And I actually did some computer measurements and used the rear 22-inch wheel as a measuring stick. And the numbers that I came up with is, yes, the rear window looks to be about 2 inches longer than on the prototype, as well as 1.5 inches shorter height-wise. And that does kind of dovetail into some other things that we've seen with the R1S with regards to when the specs first came out for it. Lengthwise, it was about 198.5 inches. And then it went up to 200.7. And now the current spec on the overall length of the R1S is 202 inches. So the R1S itself has gotten longer.
Yeah, man, and it's awesome. And when you do look at Sky, we'll have to put up, like, even now on the YouTube, you put like two pictures side by side, pre-production, the white one, and then psychedelic eye burning one, whatever, eye assault version of it. And when you do look, yeah, it's you can just kind of see, especially if you kind of look at the departure angle. I mean, there's just a few more inches there. And then there's other pictures that surfaced of this, same one. There's one that was like top down, like taken from a building, where you really get a good look at the double glass roof. That's a cool shot. And it does look pretty. You wouldn't think that few inches makes such a big difference, but it looks like a pretty big full size deal now. I like the way it looks too. The picture that came lately, just the stance looks really strong, and I don't know if there's a few other tiny changes that are hard to put a finger on. But yeah, what were you going to say, Skylar?
I agree. For just to me, just kind of impression wise, I think that it looks a little bit sleeker than the prototype version.
Yeah.
And I actually think that they may have lowered the entire roof line by a couple of inches, which is kind of interesting.
That is interesting. To keep this going, and we can loop back around to anything with the function of the gate redesign, which it's going to be a little bit wider, I think, as far as like getting stuff in the top, because essentially that panel gap has been from the back to like towards the side now,
right?
Which is just going to give a little bit more breadth across. We might be able to open it up higher at the top. Who knows? But then going around to the front of the vehicle, Jimmy, I think that you kind of mentioned in the video where we saw some turn signal stuff. So get us up to speed with that.
Yeah, I mean, that was something that we had even seen in the Patagonia anniversary video with the black R1T. You know, they went away from the DRL. In fact, it's on my screen right now. I'm looking at it. But they went away from the daytime running light being the turn signal to just the stadium light being the turn signal with your mirror marker as well for those that aren't at the front of the vehicle. So you do have that as a way of knowing that I'm turning left if you're to my left or right side and don't have access to the front of the truck or can't see the front of the truck. But yeah, there's definitely some mix back and forth in the forums on whether they like it or not, whether it's within the rules and regulations of state and federal law. That people have been posting stuff on it. It'll be interesting to see if that is maybe something that might even be optional. You know, I mean, all it takes is a little bit of programming and making sure that you've got the LED, you know, the switchback style light or the colored LEDs back there, and you can pretty much do anything with a program and a button from the screen. So it'll be curious to see where they go from here, I guess.
Yeah. No, the power of software. The other interesting thing, and Kyle, we can probably find some pictures to get you on this as well, but the picture of James Chin, who is Rivian's VP of Public Policy, in front of a blue R1T that's plugged in, and there's green illumination around the charge port, whereas, you know, since the beginning, we thought that the DRL was going to act as a charge indicator. Right. So it might still, or maybe it's not, and maybe it's now around the charge door. We don't know, but just another interesting observation from a picture that came out within the last week.
And going back to that too, I mean, it very well could be one of those things where, you know, I've read or watched some YouTube videos how people in the Tesla world don't like when the car is plugged in and you're away from it. The binnacle right there behind the steering wheel has got the car stays lit sometimes, and you can see the size of the battery on the car. So like I've got a 75, so you know, I got the Model S and then 75, and then it actually shows the state of charge and like how fast it's charging. And maybe from a privacy perspective, you don't want people seeing, you know, what kind of car you have. Like my car's actually debadged, so there's no way to tell that I've got a 75 unless you're there. But maybe from the same standpoint, maybe they've given us the ability to turn off that center stack and show what our status of charge is, and then go to just the, like you said, from that James Chin picture, the illuminated ring around the charge port. And I know from going to the events, I don't think they did it at the Austin event that I recall, but in Denver when we were there, at one point towards the end when people started thinning out, RJ actually had I can't remember who it was, but it had one of the Rivian guys that was there actually turned down the color temperature of the DRL, or turned down the brightness at least.
Brightness, okay.
Because for the shows, I mean, they have those things pumped to 1,000. I mean, that DRL is screaming bright. And towards the end of the night, when it was a dark room, or darker because the sun was going down there in Denver, it was extremely bright. So he actually had him dial it down so it wasn't so offensive in there in that Stanley hangar. So.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Through this, Jimmy, you were talking about charging and charge indicators for this. Who asked Alexa about charging? Which one of you? Can you give us some more on
I did. You can actually either use your phone and do the Alexa app. Every now and again, my Alexa gets it wrong, or she doesn't hear me right, and she says something. I don't know what you mean, or nothing is named my Rivian in your Alexa account. If you just type it in or text it in the Alexa app and ask Alexa, what's the status of charge of my Rivian? She says that's not supported yet, which leads me to believe it's going to be something they've worked on, or at least they've started working on, because how would Alexa even, most of the time, if you ask a question and she doesn't know, she's like, I don't know what that means, or I can't do that. But
yeah, well, that's cool.
Yes.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you get a chance, please check us out at rivianstories.com for the latest Rivian news, our podcast, and to join our community free. Thanks again.